Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the FIDF family as we commemorate and remember the fallen on this Yom HaZikaron. I'm Joel Chasnoff. Today, we pay tribute to the IDF soldiers and victims of terror who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our homeland and our people throughout Israel's 74 years as a nation. Yom HaZikaron is Israel's Memorial Day, and it is an extremely emotional day for all Israelis. Unlike the Memorial Days that I remember growing up in the States, where the day was characterized by barbecues and pool parties and baseball games, the sad truth is virtually no one in this tiny country has been left somehow untouched by the premature loss of a loved one, a friend, or simply an acquaintance from the neighborhood. The reality is that freedom isn't free. And as we saw in the most recent terror wave, those of many backgrounds who stand by them and serve beside them are still targeted and murdered simply for being Jewish. It's a sobering, present, and personal realization. Today, we grieve together and bow our heads in memory of their selfless sacrifice and, in their honor, rededicate ourselves to supporting the IDF, the soldiers who protect Israel, and the Jewish people worldwide. In this way, we ensure their sacrifice is not in vain, and we enable their memory to inspire a better world. We remember together the more than 23,800 IDF soldiers who have fallen in defense of their country, their families, and the Jewish people, and the more than 3,000 civilians who have been killed in terror attacks. In Israel, Yom HaZikaron begins with the sound of a siren wailing the night before at sunset. The next day, at exactly 11 a.m., a second siren begins, bringing the nation and its people to a complete standstill, marking a 24-hour period of mourning with 2 minutes of silence. This moment of silence is a national event. People all over the country halt whatever they're doing, be it work, driving in the streets, or even kids in class or out at play. They stop and listen to this 2-minute siren, and they stand. I would like to tell you about Miriam Peretz. Miriam is a mother, and a mother who has suffered. She tragically lost 2 of her sons during their service in the IDF, an unthinkable and tragic loss. She has become an icon here in Israel, an inspiration and a symbol of Zionism. And here is her story.
שלום רב לכם. מאות ליוו היום למנוחות את 2 ההרוגים בהיתקלות בעזה ביום שישי. מרים פרץ קברה את בנה אלירז היום 12 שנים אחרי שקברה את בנה אוריאל. גם הוא היה קצין בגולני.
אוריאל, אחי! קורא לך, ואתה לא עונה.
אתה לא רק הבן שלי, אתה הבן של עם ישראל.
אין כאב גדול יותר מנפילת בן או בת, אבל יש כאב גדול מזה כשנופלים 2. המהלומה הנוספת מכפילה ומשלשת את עוצמת היגון. מרים היא סמל לגבורת האם הישראלית. היא מאירה את העולם במעשים טובים, בחיזוק האחר, בהעצמת הרוח.
אני, מרים פרץ, מתכבדת להשיא משואה זו לכבוד הנופלים, מגיני העם והארץ, ובהם שני בניי, לוחמי סיירת גולני, אוריאל ואלירז זכרם לברכה, לכבוד אזרחי מדינת ישראל וכל הכמהים ומייחלים לברכת ונתתי שלום בארץ ושמחת עולם ליושביה ולתפארת מדינת ישראל.
In Israeli culture, it is a normal and accepted phenomenon that when soldiers enter the military, and definitely when they go into war, they make a journal, write poems and letters, or create songs. It is unfortunate that we have with us today so many of these works, as they are often intended to be a last chance to say some words to the people they love. And now we have them in our hands. Sergeant Erez Stark was one of the 73 soldiers who was killed in a helicopter crash in 1997. 2 transport helicopters were ferrying IDF soldiers when they collided in mid-air, killing all 73 on board. Shock traveled across the country. One small but memorable aspect of this tragedy was the discovery of Erez's diary. This diary was one of his most precious belongings. It was where he wrote songs and composed his poems. The song Shum Davar Lo Yifga Bi, Nothing Will Hurt Me, is a song that represents these inexplicable tragedies. It is a song of concern that characterizes Israeliness, a song which shows the parents who constantly worry about the safety of their children. In this song, Erez writes, I hear my father's words in my head for years. If something were to happen to you, I'll have no reason to live.
שלום, מדבר ארז. אני לא אהיה זמין, לא בזמן הקרוב, אבל אם תשאירו שם ומספר טלפון, זה מאוד חשוב, אז אני אצור איתכם קשר מתי שאני אוכל. אני מבטיח. ביי.
שום דבר לא יפגע בי, שום דבר, לא אישה, לא כדור מחבלים, שום דבר לא יפגע בי, כי ככה נשבעתי לאחי, לאחותי, להורים, ובכיתי בלילות ודאגתי בימים. שום דבר לא יפגע בי, שום דבר, לא אישה, לא כדור מחבלים, שום דבר לא יפגע בי, כי ככה נשבעתי לאחי, לאחותי, להורים, ובכיתי בלילות ודאגתי בימים. וקולו של אבי מהדהד לי בראש כבר שנים שאמר, אם יקרה לך משהו אין לי טעם לחיים, אין לי טעם למחר. אם אתם עומדים כאן היום מעליי, כנראה שלא עמדתי בהבטחתי, מצטער בחיי. שום דבר לא יפגע בי, שום דבר, לא אישה, לא כדור מחבלים, שום דבר לא יפגע בי, כי ככה נשבעתי לאחי, לאחותי, להורים, ובכיתי בלילות ודאגתי בימים.
That was, of course, the IDF ensemble, and we thank them for that moving performance. It is difficult to take all of this in, especially seeing the pain right in front of us. But maybe we can take inspiration from a quote from Nahama Israeli, yet another mother who lost 2 sons. They both died in the Yom Kippur War. She says, if there is no value in giving life, then life itself has no value. The message, of course, is clear, that life does have value. It is not only the loss of family members that we mourn today, but also the loss of our friends. The tremendous impact a good friend can have on our lives, it's obvious. Well, here now is an example that shows the true bond of friendship.
I remember that night, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. We had finished what we were there to do. Moments before we left, a rock was thrown from the rooftop. All of a sudden, someone yelled, there's an injured person, get the medics. I see someone being dragged right to where I am. His face is all bloody. I thought it was one of my friends until the friend that I thought it was came up to me and said it was Amit. The doctor did emergency surgery for him on the street. I was holding the flashlight for the doctor. When we left, I was in the mindset that Amit was alive. We get back to base after our 3-kilometer trek back, and we're standing there and we're waiting for an update. Then the commander comes out, he stands us all in a circle, and he says, look guys, there's no easy way to tell you this. Amit didn't survive. And I went blank. We all gave each other hugs, cried. The whole next month kind of just flew by. We went from going back into the village trying to find the guy who did it, to going to visit his parents, to going to the funeral, to going to the Shiva, back into the town at night, back to the parents in the morning. No sleep, barely eating. And for me specifically as a lone soldier, I still haven't hugged my mom since this happened. My friends all went home to give their moms a big hug. They cried, and I did my fair share of crying. I fell asleep on the phone crying to my dad, crying to my mom numerous times. So yeah, it's just a different experience as a lone soldier, and I'm not taking away from my friends. We all went through a very traumatic, very hard to watch situation. I was 12 feet away from him when he died, and he was one of my best friends. I knew deep down when I drafted into the Israeli army that something like this could happen and that I was putting my life on the line. But until you lose a friend and until something like this does happen, that risk doesn't feel real. It goes from that video game feeling to real life and real consequences. Amit's death really touched the whole country. Us as a tzevet, as a team, we lost a brother. His parents lost a son. That brotherhood that we paid for in blood is going to be with us for the rest of our lives.
We are privileged to have the soldier with us right now from that video. Noach, thank you for joining us. It's really a privilege to talk to you. I want to ask you if you could share a memory of Amit.
Yeah, so when me and Amit were stationed outside of Shechem, Nablus, we were together in the war room. Neither of us were active in combat. I was just coming off of an injury. He was coming back from a different job. And every night we had the late night shift. We had the boneyard shift. We were there from 12 o'clock at night until 6 a.m. And our job is basically to be awake and, to make sure that everything's quiet in the area. And at the time it was relatively quiet. So our job was basically to stay awake and really during the week it's fine, sometimes, you can be on your phone, you can, kind of get away from each other, but on Shabbos, I'm religious. He's not. And usually when you're, doing nothing all day, the not-religious guys get on their phones. He wouldn't touch his phone on Shabbos. We would sit there and we'd play gin rummy for 6 hours straight, not keeping score, and just talk about life. And it was for me, like, that's when we became very close, was like just that humanity that, like, I would have probably been on my phone. Sucks to be the other, if the other guy was religious, he can go, read a book or something, but no, he made it a point to, like, involve me, and we would talk and have, like, deep conversations about whatever it was, and play cards. And, like, to this day, like, that game, it holds meaning to me, because that's how one of the ways he lives through me is playing cards. And, like, for me that was huge. I think about it all the time.
Simple but poignant activity.
Yeah, just like a simple, and it's something that honestly, if Amit was still alive, I wouldn't think about. But it's those those small things that, like, remind you of him, that at least for me, it's incredible every time. Like, it really is.
I want to hear about the wave tattoo.
Amit, on his left hand, had a wave tattooed onto his wrist, and so when he died, everyone wanted to do a tattoo. That's like a thing. People, get the date. Like, when somebody passes away that's special to them, they get the date that's tattooed on. They get the date that they died tattooed on there somewhere or whatever. The guys in my unit, and Amit's mom, and a few other family members got the wave tattoo. Me and one of my other friends, both religious guys, tattoos, don't really, make sense for us and aren't really our thing. We got necklaces, and I wear it every day, and I haven't, I wear it every day. And, for me, this is, like, the most important, like, this is more important to me than any other piece of clothing. It's on me at all times, and if I'm not wearing it, I feel naked, and it's just another it's a way for me to wear, to think about him all the time.
I do want to ask one last personal question, just for you. How has life changed since May 12th of 2020?
So, on the day-to-day life, it hasn't really changed so much, besides for every once in a while, once a day, always, at least once a day, I look down at the necklace and I think about him, or I look at pictures from the army and I look at pictures of him. When I look at pictures from the army, he's in there. But again, life kind of moves on, and it's only made me stronger, and only, strengthened the drive for me to go and do reserves, and for the rest of the guys in my team too. We all come and do reserves as on, on principle. We have to come. Everyone has to come, but we kind of have a little bit more motivation to show up and to be there. And we still go visit the family on the weekends, Fridays and Saturdays and Saturday nights whenever possible. And it's just it's put that brotherhood of my team in blood, and it's kind of, people stay friends afterwards, but we've kind of become a family even after the military.
Amit is not here, but the friendship lives on.
Yeah.
I really want to thank you for sharing it on this Yom HaZikaron and keeping his memory alive. Toda Rabah. It is at times like this, when we feel hopeless and at a loss, that there is nothing left to do but turn our heads to the heaven and pray, as the song Arim Roshi implores us to do.
הולך אני כעת במשעול ההווה, כילד ההולך לו לאיבוד. כפות ידיהן מושטות, מבקשות את העזרה, להמשיך איתך את המסע. ובצדדים הפרחים כאילו איבדו את זהותם, מחפשים עוד קרן אור שתעזור, עוד לגימה קטנה של מים ממעייני החוכמה, תביא להם את התקווה. הרים ראשי, אשא עיניי אל ההרים המרחקים, וקולי יישמע כזעקה, כתפילת האדם, וליבי יקרא, מאין יבוא עזרי.
הולך אני כעת בנופים חדשים, הצעדים הם נעשים כה איטיים, מה יש שם שאין פה, שאל אותי עובר, מה בלב אתה שומע?
הרים ראשי, אשא עיניי אל ההרים המרחקים, וקולי יישמע כזעקה, כתפילת האדם, וליבי יקרא, מאין יבוא עזרי. הרים ראשי, אשא עיניי אל ההרים המרחקים, וקולי יישמע כזעקה, כתפילת האדם, וליבי יקרא, מאין יבוא עזרי.
We're now joined by Colonel Elad Edrei, commander of the IDF Homefront Command of the Haifa region. Colonel Edrei, thank you so much for joining us. And I want to ask you about Yom HaZikaron, what it means to you and what emotions are stirred up on this day.
Yom HaZikaron means to me that me and my friends to the service are responsible for the safety of the people of Israel, and me especially feel responsible to the safety of my own family, my friends, the people that I grew up with.
And what message do you try to impart on your own soldiers on this day about responsibility and about staying strong, whatever obstacles might come their way?
The main message that I like to share with my soldiers, and especially with my officers, is that this is our turn. From the day that the State of Israel was established in 1948, generations of fighters did their own commitment on their own turn, and now it's our turn to defend the borders of Israel and bring the safety to the State of Israel.
I know Yom HaZikaron is very personal for you as well, that you have had to console families. Tell us a little bit about that.
During my service, unfortunately, I lost a few friends and soldiers that served with me on battles. I would like to focus on one of them. His name is Roy Rosner. He was a major from Hulon, and he died in Operation Castled in 2009 on the Gaza Strip.
I want to ask a little bit about Roy, if you don't mind. How long did you know him? When did you meet?
Roy and I first met at the year of 2000. He was a sergeant, and I was a second lieutenant. And he was a squad commander under my command as a platoon commander. And we served together as infantry soldiers for about 6 years. And we were very close. And later he met my wife, I met his wife, and he replaced me in 3 roles during the years. And then we got separated when he went to the brigade of Kfir, and I went to the paratrooper brigade. And we then met again at 2009, a few days before he died.
So it's not just comrades, it's a personal friend at this point, family, friends, and it's already been 13 years. So what happens during those 13 years in terms of memorializing, remembering, keeping his memory alive?
The very emotional story is how we got the notice that he died, because day before he died, he came to my battalion to say hi to me and my friends, and we sat with a cup of coffee, and we talked about the operation. It was a conversation between friends. When do you supposed to get inside, which means inside to the strip. I'm going to do it tomorrow, I'll do it next week, and so on. And then the morning after, I was at the operation center of my battalion, and we got the message by the radio that he felt that he died. And we were all in shock. We didn't believe, because only day before we sat with a cup of coffee, and it was like delusional for us. So this is the first memory from the day he died.
In the years since Roei was killed, how has the family managed to cope?
The first years, let's say the first 5-6 years, from my point of view, were very tough years. Roei was very loved by his friends, all his environment, his teachers, his soldiers, of course by his wife and parents. And during these years, we did a few events to cherish his memory from time to time, and a lot of units in the IDF that heard his special story did also ceremonies to tell the story.
I want to hear about the bike event that happens every October, I think in connection with his birthday. Tell us about that.
Roei is a biker, a great hobby of his. He also took a bicycle to states out of Israel to ride in challenged places. And he used to do it a lot during his free time. So his wife decided that every year on October 23, which is his birthday, we will have a ride to his memories. So all his friends, family, neighbors, people that knew him from his old unit gathered, and we did it every year, and we did it until today.
Just 9 months ago, you were in a completely different situation in Surfside, Miami, assisting in the rescue operation after the apartment complex collapsed. Tell us what Yom HaZikaron means to you in that different context.
During these 15 days, we, the delegation members, we experienced a whole process of the families, between families of missing to families in mourning. And we really felt that bond in that specific point because we saw how our support helps them to overcome the great pain they had. And from then until now, we're still in touch with few families.
Well, Colonel Edry, I want to thank you for joining us. I know it's a difficult day for you, both as an IDF officer and on a personal level. So, mamash toda rabah for sharing your experiences.
Toda rabah.
At the age of 18, young Israelis put their lives on the line to defend and protect the borders of Israel. In addition to our soldiers who fell, we remember our victims of terror, those whose only reason for dying was their existence in the state of Israel. As we honor them, we recognize the heavy price to pay just for living in our homeland.
I am 22 years old. I live in Evet Suf Halamish, which is a small community not so far from Jerusalem. I serve as a combat soldier in Special Force Oket, which is the IDF's K9 unit. I went back home from the army for the Shabbat. Our neighbors, they were celebrating their newborn grandchild.
On that Shabbat, there was Shalom Zachar. Shalom Zachar is a ceremony after a new grandchild was born. So we went there to celebrate with family. We all sat down to the table, made a kiddush, had dinner, and it was very happy. Suddenly, a man just barged into the house, opened the door, came in. He was wearing white shirt, black pants. The first second I thought it was one of the guests, but after he pulled out a knife and said something in Arabic, I understood that it wasn't just a guest. A second after I understood that it was a terrorist, I looked at my kids and I just told them, go upstairs. We all ran into the room. I closed the door. Then I saw that there was no key. I felt helpless without a locked door. We were very frightened, me and the kids. We heard all the screamings downstairs, so I just held the door really strong, as quiet as we could. Didn't know what was going on downstairs.
Sitting in Shabbos dinner with my family, suddenly we heard terrible screams. Me and my father, we rushed out to see what is going on. And just at the entrance of our house, we were able to see our neighbor's house, and through their window, we saw people struggling and screaming, asking for help. At that moment, I understood it was a terrorist attack. I quickly rushed back into my house and I took my gun. While I was running to their house, I saw the terrorist standing through the window, that window that I saw him before. Immediately, I shot him one single bullet. He fell straight down on the ground, and then I quickly rushed into the house looking for another terrorist. As I entered the house, I saw the massacre. My neighbor, Tova, who was injured, she told me there was only one terrorist.
When I heard someone talking in Hebrew downstairs, I understood that I was not alone with a terrorist. And then I felt safe to go downstairs. The stairs were full of blood because my mother-in-law was stabbed and went up. But the moment I got to the first floor, I saw my husband. He was lying, full of blood. I saw his last 3 breaths. On that moment, I knew that I was a widow. After I saw the soldier that shot the terrorist, I understood that because of him, I was saved. My kids were saved. My mother-in-law was saved. He's my hero. I owe him my life.
And so it is. We have lost lives that we will never regain, but we can understand that the sacrifice was for us and for the state of Israel. When we cry, God hears.
כשהלב בוכה, רק אלוהים שומע, הכאב עולה מתוך הנשמה. אדם נופל לפני שהוא שוקע, בתפילה קטנה חותך את הדממה. שמע ישראל אלוהי, אתה כל יכול, נתת לי את חיי, נתת לי הכל. בעיניי דמעה, הלב בוכה בשקט, וכשהלב שותק, הנשמה זועקת. שמע ישראל אלוהי, עכשיו אני לבד, חזק אותי אלוהי, עשה שלא אבחד. הכאב גדול ואין לאן לברוח, עשה שיגמר כי לא נותר בי כוח.
כשהלב בוכה, הזמן עומד מלכת, האדם רואה את כל חייו פתאום.
לי את חיי, נתת לי הכל. בעיניי דמעה, הלב בוכה בשקט, וכשהלב שותק, הנשמה זועקת. שמע ישראל אלוהי, עכשיו אני לבד. חזק אותי אלוהי, עשה שלא אבחד. הכאב גדול ואין לאן לברוח. עשה שיגמר, כי לא נותר בי כוח. עשה שיגמר, כי לא נותר בי כוח.
Thank you to the IDF Ensemble for that emotional and moving performance. Now, we ask you to please rise for the singing of the Israeli national anthem, Hatikva.
כל עוד בלבב בנימה, נפש יהודי הומיה, ולפתי מזרח קדימה, עין לציון צופיה. עוד לא אבדה תקוותנו, התקווה בת שנות 2000, להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים. להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים.
Our memorial program is now concluded. Thank you so much for joining us.